Hey, what's up guys? My name is Vince. Welcome to the channel. Today I figured I'd do an upload. You guys have been asking me to do an upload now for the past couple days, so here's one now. Anyway, I'm going to be explaining a topic that I get quite a bit. Now, as you may know, I'm a big diesel fan, big diesel nut in particular. I live and breathe diesels, especially Cummins. I will eventually own a diesel one day. It's very expensive for me right now, and eventually I will own a diesel one day. Anyway, I get a lot of questions on diesels in particular, even like what type of diesel is really good to buy if you're in the market. I'm just like a walking almanac, I guess you could say, on diesels. I know what I'm talking about for a lot of these diesel engines. Now, some of these older ones, I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't know it. So all I can say is, look, you're just going to have to look for yourself. But anyway, I get a lot of questions about companies like Cummins and just random stuff, actually. I've gotten plenty of questions within my years of actually doing research and actually looking into a lot of diesel engines. And the most common question, even most common statement I get is Cummins owned by Ford currently? Or they are owned by Ford and that is that. I get a lot of that, and to break it to you, they are not owned by Ford currently. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me for it because they're going to be like, oh, they did this, they did that. They are still not owned by Ford. It doesn't matter how you do it, and even how you say it, it doesn't matter because they are not still owned by Ford. Now, granted, they were owned by Ford, if that's what you mean. For that, we have to go back about 27 years, roughly. Back in 1990. In 1990, Cummins was being introduced a little bit into the truck market, like the Dodge Rams and stuff like that. They started putting them in as soon as their deal with Dodge went into effect around 1980. I think it was about 87 or so. In 1990, they were kind of having a hard time with selling engines in particular. It was just a really down year for Cummins. And I would imagine they were reached out by Ford, and a deal went down. I'm not sure how much and stuff like that, but they accepted, and they bought around 10 to 11% of shares, probably to be exact between 10.3 to 10.9% shares. So we'll just call it 10 to be close. So basically, Ford bought not even a lot of the company. So they own 10% shares. Well, I get a lot of questions that are like, how come Ford doesn't have a Cummins motor in it? Aren't they owned by isn't Cummins owned by Ford? And I'm like, no, they're not. Because one, like I said, they are not currently owned by Ford, and two, Ford owned 10.9% shares, which meant that it wasn't even their company to begin with. I mean, it doesn't matter. So basically, that's why they didn't put the Cummins motors into Fords and stuff like that, was because Cummins owned most of the company. They owned the majority of the company. Ford basically got bragging rights, saying, look, I have a say in their decisions and stuff like that. They don't have the authority to be able to throw their diesel engines, Cummins diesel engines, into their Fords. And honestly, they would never do that anyway, because Ford had their Power Stroke, which was by International. They were already in a contract with International. So that actually answers one question, is why didn't they put the Cummins motor in the Ford F1, F250s or F350s? Well, Ford had a contract with International to produce the 7.3 liter Power Stroke direct injection diesel engine, which was for their F250s and F350s. So that answers one question. The other question about Ford owning Cummins. Basically, we're going to time travel ahead to 7 years later. In 1997, when Cummins was on their feet again, they went back to Ford and bought those 10% shares that they sold to them in the first place. They bought those back. So basically, Cummins owns 100% of the whole company, their whole company. Ford no longer owns any of their company. Basically, that's what goes down. Now, Ford currently owns Mazda. They own part of Mazda. Just like the Cummins deal, they own part of Mazda. I'm not sure how much. You can look it up. Like I said, I'm not sure how much percentage of shares they own. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be asking me, what are shares? Basically, shares, I'm going to dumb this down so that an average person can be able to understand this, because it's pretty complex. Shares, so say that I own a property. And people up here on the White Mountain are going to expect this. Say I own a property, okay? And then I have a neighbor, and then I have Joe in the back, and then I have Jimmy in the other side, and I got neighbors all around me. Well, say I want to put in a well, and I want to have it as what's called a shared well, which means that well can be used to all the neighbors that are right next to me, front, back, and the side. So I have to put it in the center of my property. Basically, they have to pitch in every month to that because they have water right there. There's water right there. Well, that's kind of the same idea, except Ford has the say on some of the stuff, and they own part of the company. Because, like, maybe GM could have owned part of Cummins. They could have bought, like, what, 15% shares? But they didn't. Only Ford bought 10%. So it doesn't have to be just Ford that buys a certain amount of shares. It could be just GM. It could be Mazda. It could be Chrysler, Fiat Chrysler. It doesn't matter. Just as long as they own part of a share, then they have part of a share. It's kind of like a shared well, like I said. You have to pitch in money and stuff like that every month. So anyway, I hope this helps. So like I said, here's one question. Does Ford own Cummins? No. They used to, though. So you are right in some way. They used to, but they are not owned by they're not owned by Ford. Second question, why isn't the Cummins motor inside the Ford if they were owned by them? Well, they were in a contract with International at the time, with their 7.3 liter direct injection diesels, the big boy, that they used to put in the F250s and F350s before emissions became a problem for them, and went from there. So, anyway, and then if you're wondering how far this contract went back, this went back to, I don't know, 1984, roughly. 1983, 84 was when International signed a contract with Ford saying that they would put their diesel engines in, beginning with their indirect injections, and then going up to their 7.3. I'll explain a lot of those in another video. If you want another video on certain manufacturers, why they got to where they are with diesel engines, let me know. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you liked it, give it a big thumbs up. And if you are new, just go ahead and subscribe. That helps me a lot. And if, like I said, if you are new and you subscribed, click that notification bell right next to the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with any videos that I may come out with. And yeah. And anyway, on a side note, I did finally get my truck back. I know you guys have been asking me about a tour of my truck. And then the other Silverado, I just haven't had the time. School and life have been getting in my way. It happens. I will get it up as soon as I can. It may take a little bit. But anyway, I will get it up as fast as I can. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the video, and take care.